All right. Well, hello, world historians. I'm Ms. Lucas, teach at Sickles High School, and I'm just here helping out students going through their homework for the Aztecs or Mexico, and we're utilizing the pieces. So, didn't give you a graphic organizer like I have in the past, but if you go on to Canvas, you see we're reading from the Amsco book, this one, and it says pages 35 to 37. We're just focusing on the Aztecs, like I said in the class. So the first thing you're going to want to do, after our Europe versus Asia classwork we did the other day, the next page in your notebook, go ahead and set it up. I put Mexico focus notes taking at the top. And then you always want to start with the essential question. And if you go back to the beginning of this little part in 1.4, developing the Americas, there's always an essential question there. So I'm just going to put it towards the Aztecs. And so my essential question is, how did the Aztecs develop and change over time? And we're going to see that through the pieces. Remember, P is for political. The I is for innovations in technology. The E is for environment, how the environment interacts with humans and humans interact with the environment. C is for culture. E is for economics, and S is for social. And remember, you can reference page C in the back of your notebooks for that pieces chart to remind you of the key elements within each theme. So, as I read, I'm only going to take a few minutes of your time so you can finish the rest of it on your own, but follow along with me, and I'm going to read and show you exactly what I would do in my notebook. So the Aztecs on page 35. The Aztecs, also known as the Mexicas, were originally hunters-gatherers who migrated to Mexico from the north in the 1200s, and that's central Mexico. In 1325, they founded their capital, and I can never say this word, but Tenochtitlan, on the site of what is now Mexico City. Over the next 100 years, they conquered the surrounding peoples and created an empire that stretched from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. So nice little overview here. What I often do is after I read like the little paragraph, I go, okay, where can I put that in my pieces? So here is going to be on our P. So starting with the P, I'm going to put the dates of when they're founded, because that's always good to look back on in our notes. Remember, don't necessarily need to remember that, drill it in your head, but it's good to be able to refer back to. So we have 1200s is when they migrated to central Mexico. I like the point that this is, what is now Mexico City. And know the area is not a bad thing to do as well. Their empire was as big as from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific. So, capital city. The Aztecs located Tenochtitlan on an island in the middle of a swampy lake in order to protect it from attacks. Tenochtitlan grew to almost 200,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in the world. To provide water for the city, they built a network of aqueducts. At the center of the city, the Aztecs built a pyramid that rose 150 feet in the air. The Great Pyramid and other pyramid temples and palaces were made of stone. On Lake Texcoco, the Aztecs built floating gardens called Chinapas. To increase the amount of space for food production, the Aztec dug ditches to use lake water to irrigate their field and drain parts of the lake for more land. So, the capital city, that's something we can put in our pieces that, remember, which was on the first paragraph too, and I just skipped over it. And sometimes that's what happens, but when it's repeated, write it down. So, Tenochtitlan is the capital city. Now, lots of, we got some innovations, and we have some environment pieces here too, right? When we look at, we got the aqueducts. That's a good innovation. We got lots of pyramids. Now this is architecture, not necessarily innovation. So I want to stick this under culture, the Great Pyramid. And then we have the floating gardens. So Chinapas, that's going to be in our environment piece. Chinapas. That's huge for food production. You know, they're using, so because they're on an island in this lake, and because there's such a huge city, they don't have much space. So that's why it goes in environment, because it's the way the humans are interacting with the environment. Hey, look, we don't have much space, so we're going to make these little floating gardens on this lake that surrounds our city, and be able to get the food that we need. And then last thing, well, we mentioned the aqueducts. So they also dug ditches. So they have the irrigation there as well. Which does fold, got innovations, and then it also folds into, so they did drain parts of the lake for more land. So that's also environment there as well. Now, how long have I been online? About 6 minutes now. I said I'll be here for about 10 minutes, and I'm almost halfway done. I mean, some of this was me explaining it, to be honest. So let me read on to the next section, on to 36. Now, also, one thing to make note of, make sure you take a look at the pictures, right? Don't ignore pictures. We see right at the top of 36, the construction of Chinapas in Mesoamerica was one way that people expanded the land on which they grew crops. So here is a nice little illustration to kind of put into your head so you kind of visualize that. I'm a very visual person myself, and you might be the same, or that might be a weakness of yours, but it is good to have those visualizations. So government, economy, and society. As the Aztecs conquered much of Mesoamerica, they developed a tribute system that ensured their dominance. Conquered people were forced to pay tribute, surrender lands, and perform military service. Tribute included practical goods such as food, cloth, and firewood, as well as luxury items such as feathers, beads, and jewelry. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second, because all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, luxury goods. So we're talking about all these goods that they're doing. And we learned about all the goods in the Asian civilizations, well, not so much in Europe, but we talked about luxury goods, luxury items, like silk and porcelain that is from China. So I know we make connections when we come to class together, but it's okay to start thinking of connections, because, hey, this is something you can share with your folks in your group, right? Hey, luxury items. These people see that luxury items are feathers, beads, and jewelry. Like China, everyone wanted their silk and their porcelain. So nice little connection and comparison there. But it's also different, right? Because they're both dealing with luxury goods. The Aztecs allowed local rulers to stay in their positions to serve as tribute collectors. This allowed Aztec political dominance without direct administration control. In exchange, the conquered people were extended Aztec protection. Kind of read that wrong. Sorry. So in here, going back to our pieces, we got one of the big P for political is that they have a tribute system. This is, to put that dominance over their conquered peoples. Tributes were, and this is where you might want to add on to what the tributes were. There might be land, it might be military service, or it might be actual goods. Have it be practical goods and luxury goods. This is where you might want to jot down those luxury goods, because we know that those were important in other parts of the world. So that might be something that we could compare. So write down feathers, beads, and jewelry. And that's about it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stop here, because I'm right at my 10 minutes that I said I would do. But see how I'm interacting. Hopefully when you're reading and you're doing that as well. And like I said, it's really not taking me that long. Of course, I'm thinking aloud, and I would write a little faster if I didn't actually speak aloud, because it's sometimes hard for me to multitask, being older than y'all. But, you don't have to talk out loud unless you think that's going to help you, because it might help you. So don't be afraid that when you do your homework, you read aloud or you kind of talk to yourself. Talk to your paper, thinking that's what you're going to do to get ready to talk to your classmates when we come back to class the next day. So continue reading through the Aztecs, continue putting in those pieces, and hopefully that helps you out a little bit so you feel a little bit more confident in what you are doing on your own so that you're prepared when we come to class to do more with it. All right? So have a great day, world historians, and we'll see you next time.